people have been asking, it is correct on the syllabus. If you don't have it written down, you can write it down now. The final exam is on May 9th in this room, starting at 10:15. Probably take you about an hour. May 9th, 10:15 a.m. May 9th, 10:15 a.m. Probably take you about an hour. Gives us 2 hours, but you won't need it. So you know that your final is going to be comprehensive. So the last class or two, I haven't decided how long it's going to take for the review for the final. I think it's important to be here for those. It's a lot of stuff to try to remember all at once. But I'm going to ask more comprehensive type of questions on the final. It will still be multiple choice because I have no choice with so many students. But they'll be more comprehensive. So be prepared to be able to think in a holistic manner, not just answer as a order column or Corinthian, but more holistically. Okay. So, for example, of a kind of a question I might ask on the final, what killed the international style? What stopped it? What events finished it? Anybody have any answer? Touched on it, but I think we went kind of fast. And so I want to go back over it. Do you have a hand up? Go ahead. No, that's not the end. That's the beginning. We're repeated in the international style. What finished it? Go ahead.
Dropping the atomic bomb.
Say it loud.
Dropping the atomic bomb.
No. I mean, that might be a minor thing. I'm going to follow up on yours, though. The understanding that science, a lot of it is scientific. So I see what you're getting at. And they really banked, I'll get to it in a minute, they really banked on science, but they also found that science could eliminate the planet. So should we design architecture based on scientific thought only? Because science was our savior, but it also decided it could be the end of us all. So that's probably a small piece. So I should correct it. Go ahead. Cold War? No. In fact, I don't think so. All right. One of the things that started to kill the international style was expressionism. Remember those ones in the molded form? It was still probably called modern. You may often hear modernism and international style as synonymous, and they are somewhat synonymous. The book even sometimes mixes them. But expressionism, where they started molding form and moving away from what Nice was doing with this pure grid and these buildings for everybody, for everywhere. The expressionists has started to customize their buildings for their site. I cannot talk. So that probably was one beginning. Another beginning of it was Complexity and Contradiction by Robert Venturi. Write that down. Robert Venturi writes a book. He's a Yale student. Think about one of you guys. You're doing your master's. You write a book, and it changes the course of architecture, or it changes the course of the degree you're taking. Holy crap! This is not some prominent, well-known architect. This is a guy at Yale Graduate School. Now, Yale's no school to sneeze at, but a guy that can write a thesis at Yale Graduate School and everybody reading it and thinking, I think this guy's got something here, is amazing. So whether you like Robert Venturi's work or not, he wrote a quintessential book that makes people stop and think. And he wrote that around 1964, 1965. He wanted complexity and contradiction back in architecture. It lost its complexity. It lost its contradiction. It became boring in his mind. And he felt there's no connection to the people with this type of architecture. There's no connection. It's hard to find the entry. These buildings have no sense of place. Your town that you grew up in, there's certain buildings that are icons that tell you this is Akron, Ohio, or this is Peoria, Illinois, or this is, Little Rock, Arkansas. They lost the sense of place. They lost the sense of connection to the people. One of the quotes the book says, International style attempted to create style of architecture beyond style and time. Beyond style and time. they tried to create a timeless architecture. Well, that's what I want to do. I would love, like Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, no one got the date right. Everybody thought it was much more current than it was. That's timeless. But the book says they attempted to create a style of architecture beyond style and time, and it failed. It failed. Also, around this time, the book says, and I agree, we started the first toxification of the planet. Around the mid-60s, we started to recognize the first toxification of the planet. We're beginning to poison our own planet. You guys don't know this, but when I was growing up, they used DDT, which is a pesticide, to kill bugs so it wouldn't eat our crops. But it also killed a lot of other insects. Butterflies, the monarch butterfly almost went extinct. And then the birds started to die because they had nothing to eat. So we began to understand the toxification of the planet. Also, when somebody said the Cold War, I probably would change that it's partially right, but on a small level, that we know that science can destroy us. We know that if we drop a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we drop the bomb, now the bombs are 100 times more powerful. We have thousands of them. We can blow up the planet 100 times. So we're starting to think about science. Is it really the answer? Some of us think science is the answer. Some of us think religion is the answer. Some of us think it's philosophy, theology. What's the answer to truth? What is really the answer? Is it science? I could argue yeah. I could argue no. We all could argue. It's probably a good philosophical thing. So also they started hermetically sealing these buildings. Seal them up. No windows that open. No natural ventilation. Use machines to condition the space for air conditioning and for heating and cooling and all those things. But what we found out when we did that, the buildings themselves were toxic. The materials we use to build them have toxins in them. Composite woods have formaldehyde in them. Anybody take biology and have to carve up a frog and is it formaldehyde? You guys probably don't do that anymore. We had. Formaldehyde in most composite woods, like plywood, or in a strand board, a lot of those things have formaldehyde in them, and it comes out and we're breathing it. And the building's closed, so we're not getting any fresh air. There's also in the glue for this carpet, and some of the things we use to make these materials, they're made out of toxins. And we're starting to have sick building syndrome, they call it, where people were getting sick and they didn't know why. Allergens. We finally found out asbestos is bad. It's killing people. That's when asbestos really came out. These guys work on asbestos all the time. It's a great insulator. And all of a sudden they're all dying. They're getting cancer. All this is happening. And we're going, what the heck? Are we doing this right? So, they tried to come up with a utopian architecture. Every time I've been along around here 60 years, and every time I aim for utopia, there's no such thing. It's a false echo. There is no utopia that happens by man. It happens accidentally, I think. They felt it was a hyper celebration of technology with no connection with reality. Lack of meaning for these buildings, standardization created a loss of place. So, all these things started to bring back a new style, postmodern. This picture, it's in your book. On page, you don't think it's important? It's in your book on page 560. I'm going to read it. Dynamiting a Pruitt-Igoe housing complex, St. Louis, Missouri, at 3:32 p.m., July 15th, 1972. 3:32. They know the exact minute this was demolished. It's in the book, the exact minute. Why? Let me read that again. Demolition of the Pruitt-Igoe housing complex, St. Louis, Missouri, 3:32 p.m., July 15th, 1972. The first charges of dynamite were detonated. Demolishing once what had been considered a model public housing complex at the high social ideals of international modern architects seemed to come crashing down with it. The ideals of international modern architects came crashing down with this demolition. One building. How many times have you seen buildings demolished? It was so bad that they were trying to create this perfect social housing for people that people wouldn't live there. There was murders, there was rapes, there was no way for people to see what each other were doing. There were dead corners where people were selling drugs. Design was based on science, not on people. Not on people. Then they couldn't run it out sooner or later. It got so bad, they just blew it up. Blew it up. So, if I ask the question, what killed the international style? We're looking for a new sense of place, a new connection to people. Again, it's a combination of classical and modern. Classical almost always, but not always. Let's say mostly means Greek and Roman. However, there are also postmodern references to Gothic. Not too many Baroque. To Gothic, maybe Egyptian. So, based on what Robert Venturi wrote, and based on this design, which happened in 1965 or 6, let's bring back those references. Let's bring back the reference of a chimney, the reference of a slope roof, the reference of an arch, a window that we understand. But let's put a very modern spin on it. And we can make it whimsical. Do you need a real arch made out of brick with a keystone, or do you just need a line that looks like an arch? And we just bring back, those slope roofs really aren't traditional. They don't have the overhang. Most of the time when I do a slope roof like that, there's overhangs on the side to protect the walls. He's saying, let's do it modern. So we can be whimsical with it. We're going to bring back these references. And people might get a little tiny smile. Because it may be a little bit non-serious. The international style architecture is extremely serious. What else do you see that's back? Look at those two. What do you see that comes back? That's back into style now. Symmetry. Those are both symmetrical. The international style architects got rid of it. Most of them. They definitely didn't need it. They definitely didn't want it. It might have happened occasionally, but pretty much it's gone. Symmetry is back. What's wrong with that? Do we like symmetry? Something balanced in that. Some of you might. I think most of us instinctively kind of feel comfortable with symmetry. However, now, as an architect to design the space inside, I gotta be symmetrical again. Symmetry is back. Notice the styles of these things. The one on the lower right might have a tiny Egyptian reference. That column is somewhat Doric, but no base. It's almost between Doric and Egyptian. The one on the top, I don't know what's out. Maybe a little bit of Gothic. Very symmetrical. Half arches, circles. Very, very symmetrical. And reference to the past. The slope roof is back. Even the columns on the one in white, they're really, really blurred columns. They have its capital base, but they're not round. They have these little ribs on them. They're changing, and they're messing with it. They're mannering to an extreme extent classical architecture. Ooh. Go back. Sorry. This one was on your exam. The answer is postmodern. This is the postmodern exam. It's just like that blue slide, that blue and white slide. It's a mixture of modern and classic. But the biggest telltale sign of this, if you look closely, is these columns. What style? Not going to be your final 10. What style are those columns? Somebody. Ionic. You might get confused. Well, how do I know? It's really blurred, isn't it? The only reason you know you got that little curve shape, like the Ionics had the volute in them, or they look like the random torn. They're similar. They're a reference to Ionic. Very good, thank you. But if you look closely, right there, they don't touch. Those columns are holding up nothing. There's a gap right there. The column goes up, there's air. You look through it, you can see through it, and then the top is just attached. It doesn't hold up anything. But it says, this is where the front door is, this is where the front door is. Hello, hello. this is a reference to something we understand. Slope roof is a little bit of a kind of sort of window, half rose window, kind of sort of very blurred. That's where the postmodern comes in. But why I like this slide is a perfect mix. Like you had this whole building, they plastered this thing on. And there's also a stairway, you know, to give you some sense of where the front door is. A lot of those international styles you didn't know. This is in the book. Some of these I'm going to show you aren't. This is by an architect named Charles Moore. It's a plaza space in New Orleans, I believe. I might get that location wrong. But what I really want you to know, this guy's pushing this postmodernism to the edge. Charles Moore was one of my heroes because I didn't like the international style. I thought there was some good things about it, but I had the same problems that these guys had. It wasn't any fun. I like to have a little fun. It's way too serious. Notice that there's columns that look very, what style would that be? You know that one? If you had to guess.
Probably Corinthian.
Probably Corinthian. There's a young lady this is the stuff that you're going to have to know in the final. If you can't put these dots together, you're going to miss them. You're going to look back and say, okay, it's not exactly Corinthian, but it's sure not Doric, and it's sure not Ionic. It's Corinthian. It's kind of complicated up there, but it's made out of chrome. Chrome? You can't make a column out of chrome. They're endless stuff. What do you do? Modern materials. You don't care about the materials, you care about the reference. Oh, I see this now. They'll lead me right to the entrance. Notice, again, Corinthian column, but much more serious at the entrance. Very traditional Greek and Roman references here. There's even a tablature up here. You guys don't have to know that term. Notice the big arch. Man, but see the keystone? Thank you. This is so great. Notice the keystone? It doesn't really work. It's not in the arch to hold it up. It's hanging above it. You see it, it's pulled it right out of there. Just like the Mannerists did. When we studied postmodernism, we studied Mannerism a lot. That's what the Mannerists would do right after the Renaissance. But we look at that, and I know there's neon. It's not made out of stone. It's probably made out of plastic and neon tracing. Very modern neon. Neon, that just screaming in the face like the traditional would say, what are you doing? You're out of your mind. You can't do that. And a very, 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 very accurate entablature column capital. A nice arch, you know that's the entrance. There's some more, they look Ionic again. The Mason style. This is postmodernism. This building is in Disney World. I want to show you where postmodernism took it. Oh, now they're calling the trees. Or are they really columns? Are they holding up everything? Are they trees? Are they columns? There's the big leaves. Are they holding up everything? We're going to the nth degree here. How far do we go with postmodernism? How far do we go? Anybody guess what style this is copying? I know your mind's going, I don't know, it doesn't have anything kind of. Looks a little Greek. This looks a little Parthenon-like. Now these things, you want to have on the Parthenon, so you're going with, does it Roman arch? Is it Renaissance? Maybe all of the above. Look at this up here made out of glass, which was never made out of glass. And this is called acroteria. These have small ones in the real old temples. Most of them got broken off. He made a great big deal out of it. This is a library in Chicago. Notice symmetry. Notice the arch right there at the front door. There's two other arches, probably doors. Bang. But it's got blurred references. I'm not shooting them out. That's what David was saying. Look at this one. This is also Disney World. Go to Disney World, you see. What are the columns made out of? The 7 freaking dwarfs. Are you kidding me? But we know in Greek architecture, they had the women that held up. Remember, way back, the one I showed you, the women were columns? Why can't the 7 dwarfs be columns? Even though we got 6 of them, the 7th was right there. I hope he's sleepy. This is Disney World. Now look, this is a Greek reference. This is a Roman reference. This is very symmetrical. And the columns are the seven doors. Is this real architecture? Should we be doing this? Is it fun? When my kids go to Disney World, they get a kick out of it. What's wrong with that? It's Disney World. It doesn't have to be serious. Or does it? You gonna do this at the Supreme Court? Hell no. Are you gonna take it serious? Maybe O.J. Simpson case. Put it there. You should have said that. That's political. No one got one laugh out of it. You guys probably weren't even born yet. Were you? 96? You were little. Itty bitty. What a farce. Anyway, so that why not? In a what's it called, amusement park atmosphere. Why not? I have no problem. But I would not want it on my Supreme Court. I would not have wanted it on my maybe my school. I sure wouldn't want it on my college. Could you imagine asking the college go, it's a small world, it's an academic world, you guys think this is serious? I want to learn something. I want to play Disney World. Architects have to think about that stuff. But what you got to understand, I forgot to say this. The masters of architecture, we call it the high style. The masters have an idea, and the guys that aren't so smart copy it without understanding really what they're after. So the copies of things really start to discourage you. And he says, that's not what I meant. You copied it, but not right. Corbu says, that's not what I meant. So these copies discourage. Now you have a whole bunch of modern cities with all these glass towers, but they're really not 100% understanding what they were after. Can you do postmodern and high rises? Sure you can. This building right here, you would not say it's postmodern until you got to the top. But you might say because it's very symmetrical. But what's this? What the hell is going on there? So I'm going to Chippendale style from those old chairs you used to see that have the cut in the back of the chair. He's really copying that. Now he's copying this thing that he sees in the back of a chair on a monumental building. But what's different about this one than that one, and that one back there, and that one? Hey, where do you work? Oh, one with a whole roof. Oh, I know what that is. And those are the slope roof. All these other ones have flat. It's bad. We're bad. What reference do you think here? What classical style, old style would you see a reference here? There's a question for the exam, the final exam. What style? Come on, kids. Take a shot. Art Deco, I'll go for that. Here's a man that's thinking. That's what you're going to have to do. He's seeing a little Egyptian reference in there. Maybe he's seeing a little streamline. I don't know. What? Any other style? Yes, say it louder. Gothic. Pointed vertical emphasis. Yeah, I know it's blurred, guys. I know it's blurred, but it's there. If any one of those answers, either one of those answers would be correct. How about this one? What makes that postmodern? Well, first, real symmetry, and just one thing in there, just kills it. I wonder if you see it. Do you see it, Connor? Scale, screwed up. Here's a person with these little windows kind of tell me there's floors, but right here, I don't know how many floors are happening. This is what? What does this look like in history? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. I thought he's not raising either. What does that look like in history? Think that it was small, now it's huge. Who said it? A keystone. A gargantuan keystone. That's the only reason for that shape, kids. It's the only reason. Damn, it's gotten so blurred that some people don't see it. I thought, I'm going to holy crap, it's monumental scale, some goofy scale thing going on here, that's got a giant keystone up there. Wow, that's crazy, right? Do you like that building? Anybody like any of these? Somebody hate them all? Rather go back to international style? There's no wrong answer. This one bugs me a little, but I have no problem with it. This reminds me of Gothic, though, like there's going to be a gargoyle, maybe it's a Ghostbusters. Anybody see Ghostbusters? The building that's got the ghost is what style? Gothic. Gothic's this black. It reminds us of darkness. And, we think of that because of the Black Plague and all that. So the ghosts aren't going to hang out in an international style building. They're not going to hang out in a postmodern building. They're going to hang out in Gothic. That's dark and black and scary. Even though it was the pinnacle of the church, what happened right after that was the plague and famine. And it reminds us of scary times. So that's where the Ghostbusters would be. They wouldn't hang out there. That's where they'd be. Okay. That's my memory. I'm going to look and see if I missed something. There's a lot of irony in some of these, but they were loose. Oh, this is perfectly said from the book. Loose interpretation of classical orders. Very loose. We began to explore ornament. Now, what's happening to these buildings, one of the things that killed the international style was they were not durable. They were not durable. On your exam, that's the one you were looking for. They had no surprise and delight, and they were not durable. These buildings now, the ornament comes back, we can start covering up the joints, we can start putting slope roofs to get the water off, we can start doing these things to make these things last longer. Architecture with a broad popular appeal, recognizable architecture, themed buildings. Okay, here's another great quote from the book. Seeking reference to form that lies deep in human subconscious. I like that line. Postmodernists are seeking reference to form that lies deep in our human subconscious. Not these sterile buildings. Some were moving to pure classicism. Some were moving towards perfect representation of old buildings. That I didn't want. We got to move forward. We can't start doing Parthenons again. But some were. There's some architects, and I don't put them in here because they're a small blip. They took postmodernism to extreme level where they were almost copying exactly these old buildings. And that wasn't the intent. Some thought classicism wasn't a style, but a timeless set of principles. A dialogue between the past and the present. I thought it was a dialogue between the past and the present. I want to tell you, postmodernism lasted about 20 years. It lasted about 20 years. And what I'm saying that is, did it have a major impact on the history of architecture? No. Happens to be when I was in architecture school. 64 to 84, maybe 85. I went to architecture school between 75 and 80. I was looking at all this modernism. They were teaching modernism. They were saying, no, modernism, international style, that's what we're doing. We're not doing postmodernism. I was experimenting with postmodernism, and some of my grades weren't as good as, but I said, Dad, got it? We got to keep looking at this thing. They kept saying international. They were right. After the smoke cleared, postmodern died, international came back out the other end a little bit. What really, I think, killed postmodernism, write this one down. Very poor interpretations by other architects. Very poor interpretations by other architects. The main dudes that do it, Robert Stern, Venturi, Michael Graves, some of these guys, you don't have to know their name, did it very well. But all those other guys did it pretty bad. You'll see shopping malls and strip centers that are postmodern, they're still left, and they're pretty poorly done. So everybody started to say, no, my God, what is this? This postmodernism, we get it. We understand that we need that reference, but we've got to do it better than this. These plastic, drive-in, highway buildings that are poorly constructed just to get these historic references, made out of cheap material. So much of it was stucco and drive-in. It's a synthetic stucco and plastic material. things that didn't last. And so postmodernism started to peter out because of that, in my opinion. And we started looking for more truth again in architecture, or what is really the zeitgeist. So postmodernism at 64 to 84, somewhere. That zeitgeist, if you know that time, was a pretty good time. But people were making money. The Vietnam War was in it. That was the negative part. The money was good. Reaganomics was happening. You know, the 80s. You ever see all the 80s with the big hair and you had the clothes with the shoulder pads and all that weird stuff we wore? It was a very kind of eclectic, kind of weird time. It started to work, but it only lasted about 20 years. I'm glad it's there because it gave us a message about this international style stuff. I mean, you got to remember people live in buildings. People occupy buildings. It's not all science. Check my notes. Reference to the past through abstraction. To pay respect to the past. But that's a good question. I think the zeitgeist might be commercialism. Shopping. I don't know. What started to happen is the computers started to bubble up. Some of the first computers, when I was an architect, I started in 1981 as a professional, and I used drawing boards, T-squared triangle, for my first 12, 14 years. And then about the mid-80s, the computer really started to hit architecture. That's why it's been 1984. The computer becomes important. The computer was invented earlier than that, but it really started to trickle down into every office, mid-80s. That's such a short period, I'm not sure what the zeitgeist was. I know that people were making money again, Reaganomics was in, the stock market was up, people were kind of happy and flourishing, it was pretty good, especially between 70 and 85, because the Vietnam War was about over in 70, even though we lasted a few more years to get over. So, I'm not sure if the zeitgeist is a good question. So, right at the end of this time, Neo-expressionism. Remember talking about expressionism? Neo means new. So if you hear Neo in front of Gothic, it means new Gothic. Neo in front of Classicism means new Classicism. Or new Neo-Greek is new. This is Neo-expressionism. This is Bruce Goff. You don't need to know it. But what the heck is he doing? Now he's back away from postmodernism and looking at something very, what I would call geometric. But he's looking at spiral forms. He's looking at maybe the Nautilus. And he might be looking at some of the things that we talked about with the golden section. That, what are the ratios? He's got this Nautilus-like shape spiraling up into something. And that's very natural or very nature-driven. Start looking at these mathematical formulas again. This is also Neo-expressionism. Look at the one at the top. Mark Prince is the name of the architect here. He was worked for Bruce Goff. When that thing came out in the magazines, I'm like, what is he trying? A giant centipede here. Again, it's expressionism. I don't even know how to explain it, but there's something more biological about these things that they start to get forms of maybe through his studies of flora and fauna. That spiral thing by Bruce Goff, the conch shell, everybody looks at that thing, and you open it up and you see that spiral in all those little compartments. And it's a mathematical formula that fits in that. Notice now the windows are coming back, but one thing really sad, the giant air conditioner right on top of the head. I would never do that. Never let that stick out. And this one on the lower right, notice how it's integrated with the trees. What is that shape? I don't know. It's a room house and room fit in there, but it's really integrated, really organic, and the material is coming wood again. That plaster, the international style, didn't like those white plaster sterile buildings with steel and plaster and metal are becoming wood in both of these. Concrete block. And that spiral staircase up there. There's another spot that stair goes up and around. Shingles that we understand. Cedar It's a short period of neo-expressionism, but neo-expressionism is going to lead us down the road a little bit. The dreaded deconstruction, right? Deconstruction down, or deconstructivism. A lot of isms. Deconstruction. 1985 to 2000. Where did this come from? I still don't know. I wanted to do a thesis on the J.D. Myers. Maybe time we can know. In reaction to postmodernism, a new group of architects started to think about kind of architecture backwards, in my opinion. Some of these are my opinions. A lot of this stuff's not in the book, the book's not up to date. That they started exploding. They started saying, what if we shattered this thing? Or what if we started all over again with no preconceived ideas? Like Cartesian thought. Again, I love Descartes because he says he tries to get rid of all preconceived ideas to find the truth. And again, I said this about the fourth time, I think therefore I am. He got back to that basic thing. I'm gonna start right there. I don't even know if I exist. Do I exist? Well, I'm thinking, therefore I must exist. Because he didn't want to take it in. You've ever seen The Matrix? Everybody seen the movie The Matrix? They have a whole different grid we're on. What if this is all fake? What if this isn't real? Oh, you guys go, this guy's nuts. He's been smoking something. No. But that's what The Matrix is doing. What if this is all not real? So Descartes did the same thing. What is real? What is true? He took it all away until I'm thinking. And I must exist. Then he started back. Okay, then what's next thing? I know it's real. These guys are saying, what is real? What is all this junk? What is all this postmodern stuff? I love The Matrix for that reason. If you haven't seen The Matrix, you might not like that stuff, but once that movie scares the crap out of you, we could be in some kind of hologram, and we're really batteries for some other society. I mean, it's really bizarre. But philosophers go there. So these guys started thinking, what if we went back to zero? So in the upper left here, this architect, I'm not going to give you his name because I don't want you to get confused. The red area is actually enclosed building. That's how much area I need. 4 walls and a roof. That red. That's how much area in proportion. The gray area is how much I need just a roof but no walls. 4 walls and a roof, just a roof and no walls, open air space. That's how he started with squares. Then he threw a bomb in. Boom! And then bam! Explodes. The actual proportions of the red and gray and the light gray are the same, but they're exploded, deconstructed. Now this is a concept that actually is built apart. What if I exploded these people, they came pieces and they came out of shards, and I have the same amount of red area, and the same amount of dark gray area, but they come out like this. Then, he's got all these pieces, he's got to reassemble them on the grid. I'm kind of surprised he went back to the grid, but he did. Now, I make all these pavilions on this perfect grid, but they're made out of these broken up pieces. That was his concept. This is my best slide to try to explain deconstructivism because I still don't get it all the way. I read some books about it, and they said that a lot of it came, anybody here, the artist Kandinsky, you're an artist here, he did these kind of really wacky geometry, really cool paintings. He's Russian, the Russian structuralist, I think they call him. Like in the 20s did this. Why are they peeling from that guy? I don't really know. There were some other philosophers, Nietzsche and Derrida. And if anybody's reading philosophers, Nietzsche's the one that said God is dead. So he's like Descartes. He's saying, what if there's no God? We just assume. And Derrida was writing this really weird stuff. And these guys were reading those philosophers, us architects, reread this. Hey, maybe he's right. Maybe God is dead. Maybe we need to explode what we think. Maybe God is dead. What is real? Let's explode some stuff. Let's not go back to the forever. Let's not do that. Crazy. We're always thinking. We never stop thinking. We never stop thinking what's appropriate. Now what's the zeitgeist? Now we're in the Clinton area, just entertainers, that song, right? Here we are, just entertainers. I mean, screw it. We're all going to get like this. Again, everything goes with what's going on. Now we got a computer. I can do stuff I never could do before. The architecture you're about to see without the computer would never happen. Never happen. So I'm drawing with a T-square and a triangle. Boy, ask me to draw a complex rhombus. Or ask me to draw some hyperbolic parabolic. You got mathematical people. I can't draw that. I'm not going to even try. But my computer can. My computer can crunch it. Whoa. Oh, wow, that's cool. An architect who recently died. She will probably go down as one of the most famous architects of all time. She's not in the book yet. Zaha Hadid started experimenting with that explosion in 3 dimensions. Zaha Hadid. I believe one of my future classes, my top 10 architecture is going to make it. Be the first female. Thank God. By the way, when I was here, we had 100 students in architecture, 6 women. Now what do we have, about 50%? 40? 100 students, 40 to 50 women. That's good, and they're damn good. It was just an old man's tradition for a long time. Glad it's broken through. It's really broken through. This is our. So she said, what if I took 3-dimensional objects and exploded them? And I always call it a word pickup sticks. You ever see those things when you drop the sticks, they fall down, you gotta pick them up without moving the other ones? Probably you guys don't play that. But then you just drop kind of almost randomly. And how can these forms start to reconnect themselves? You did this kind of architecture. And if it's a slanted line, so what? If it's a tilted wall, so what? It causes a little bit of tension walking the wall. Anybody been to the top of St. Louis Arch? Nobody? You have? You know the walls are good when you get to the top? You feel really weird. Like, whoa! You go up there because they're all keystones. And when you get to the top, you take this elevator, and the elevator goes up. You go, how's it going to curve? It goes like this. You know, it goes straight to itself. You're like, oh, this thing's going to break. And you get to the top, and the walls are tilted. And you're kind of like, you can see the whole city, but you're like, oh. You have this tension. They're doing this on purpose. How does it stand up? They wanted this tension. They wanted you to think beyond this cute little postmodernism with the 7 dwarfs. Crap. We gotta talk about real issues here. Where's the world going? If God is dead, why are we doing the 7 dwarfs? We gotta move to the future. And I got a computer, I can do this. I can experiment with things that no one ever experimented with before. I can explode stuff. I know my architecture students now are doing stuff on computers that I'm like, what? How'd you do that? Another example, if anybody's been to Columbus, you've seen this. The Wexler Center in Columbus. This is by an architect called Peter Eisenman. I never got this guy. One of the houses he had a bedroom with a column dead center. There was no way to put a bed in there. But it's a bedroom. I'm saying, Pete, dude. Oh, I don't care. It's my architecture, man. What? You mean it's not functional anymore? It's just sculpture? It's form? It's all beauty? No commodity? This is Peter Eisenman. Now, what he's doing, he's designing this new building, kind of with a deconstructive attitude. But right here, something really wacky is going on. I'm just going to show it later. Part of this new building is over an old armory. Part of this building is where an old armory used to stand. So Peter said, look, I'm going to trace the foundations of this armory and start building some of the old forms of that old armory. But what does he do with this big thing? He splits it in half. He carves a hole right through it. Just this form, you just pull it apart. Aha! I'm deconstructing it. Look at this arch. It doesn't finish itself. It's a little tiny bit postmodern, right? Oh, Peter, he'd hate if I said that. He'd hate me. Oh no! He'd have all this. And it's got this grid that's a little bit international style that just flows through the building. This is some of his work too. So this is more cubism, and they call it deconstructivism, but it's a morph of the international constructing these things. Some of it was driven from 1920s Russian constructivism, which is Kandinsky. A radical departure. A building exists as an isolated abstract phenomenon. A building exists as an isolated abstract phenomenon. Abstract. You know, international styles, the building is just there to present itself. This is an abstract phenomenon. Isolated. Isolated. I don't care what's around me. I'm isolated from the rest. I'm abstract. I'm a phenomenon in nature. You go to nature and everything's cool, and then you see a plant that eats bugs. The Venus flytrap. That's a phenomenon. That's an isolated abstract. What the hell? All these plants are just growing off the sunlight, the soil, and water, and this one's going, oh. That's the kind of thought. So we're moving right up to today. We're in the 1990s. We're almost getting to the 20th, 21st century. Still not there. This is all kind of jumbled, and I hate this part because we're working it out, us architects. We've got this international style that's still kind of back there. We've got this postmodern, I think we've missed it. We're looking at now this neo-expressionism and this deconstructivism. We're searching. We really are. If I ask Connor, who's an architecture student, what's the style of architecture today, I don't think you'd have an answer. I don't. Sustainable. Yeah, we're going to get there. Good for you. That's really what it is. So we're struggling. I did it again. My bad. If I had to call this, give this a term, Connor might disagree with me. I call it structuralism. Write that one down. I know you're getting a lot of isms. Try to keep them together. Structuralism. What do you think structuralism means? Showing off the structure. Showing off the stuff that used to be hidden. He said it right. Showing off instead of hiding the columns and beams and the lintels and everything, the trusses that hold these together. What if we show them off? You said it right. Just couldn't think of the term you want. What if the structure drives the design? What if the firmness drives the design? Not the commodity. Get this. Just stay with me. We've had architecture that's all about commodity. We've had architecture that's all about delight. Some of these, like Eisenman, he cared about delight. I don't care if the bed fits. That's all delight. Other guys were commodity. It's just going to work perfect, but I don't care about what it looks like. Now, what are these guys? The one flat. Firmness. What if structure that holds it up drives the design? What if it's driven by that shape? What if it's driven by that core? Okay. Now, if I design this bridge, I'd get an engineer right away. Because I'm a freaking architect. I don't know how to figure all these numbers out. And I worked with the engineer right away. I said, look, I got to do this bridge across this river. And I want it sleek and modern. And he said, you know what? Steel rods are really, really strong in tension. Take a wire and try to pull it apart. Just a tiny wire, try to break it. Push it together, it goes, whoa. It's very bad in compression, but very strong in tension. I mean, a very thin piece of wire, I could probably put a 5-pound weight, a very thin piece of wire won't weigh. And a wire weighs nothing, just like a spider web. Think of a spider web. Those suckers are, and bugs land in there, the spider comes out there and goes, lunch. Those things are, they don't weigh anything. How does that work? So the structural engineer goes, wires or long pieces of tubular steel is extremely strong in tension. So if you put these in tension, I don't need much structure. They can hold up. Look, let's hold up this bridge. This is the bridge. I know this is a bad picture, but that's the bridge. Cars and trucks are driving on 4,000 pound vehicles, 10,000 pound vehicles. And it's not about these wires. Huh? Proportionally, it don't make sense. But it does if you understand structure. This thing, why is it leaning away? It's putting a counter tension on that. It's pushing this way because these wires want to pull this way, and it's counterbalancing those tension rods. And how cool is that? And me as the architect said, let's make this really sleek. Now I come in, because it's all figured out. He's got all the numbers, and I'm going, make this really cool. Put lights on it. Light that dog up so you can see the wires. Otherwise, you won't even see them. And everybody's going to go, wow. You drove across that bridge and you didn't think it's cool? I think most of you would. Look at this, man. Driving down to Florida, going to spring break. Hey, listen to something on the radio you like. Look at this thing. It's the coolest bridge I've ever seen. Instead of going over the Brooklyn Bridge with the great big Gothic towers. By the way, I might show you the Brooklyn Bridge and you want to tell me what style it's from. Here's another one. Look at this stuff. How is that supported? It's the same architect, Santiago Calatrava. You want to look him up? He says this really cool structural. He's an engineer and an architect. He's both. Crazy. That's not good. Who hates each other? I don't know. Steelers and the Browns together. We don't hate each other. Engineers and architects think completely different. Engineers say architects are nuts. They don't know what they're doing. They're doing these funky buildings. It's going to cost a lot more money. I could just put 4 columns and a roof on. And architects are saying these structural engineers, all they care about is how it holds up. They don't care about what it looks like. So we don't really get along. Now, when you're one guy, you do. Teaching me a lesson. I work a lot closer with them now because they have a great idea because they really do care. That's what this is about. Look at the retention rods again. This is one pole leaning, counterbalancing those things that are holding up roofs. The roof's kind of flying off here. You can't see it. Same idea. Starting to look like a bird, too. Uh-oh. I let it in perfect. Starting to look like an animal. Whoa. What about this rib cage? What about my femur in my leg? They say that we evolved over 38 billion years. The planet's been around that long or something. Why can't this evolution on my body make sense here? Why is the femur bone shaped like it is? Anybody who take that stuff, femur bone's got kind of knobs on the end and it goes thin and gets knobs on the bottom. Is that a column? What about an aardvark? Oh, wait a minute. Aardvark time. Maybe you dissect an aardvark. It's got these series of ribs that are real thin, but he holds together. And it's in a shape. Maybe that arch shape is a perfect shape, parabolic, that's very structurally sound. We've talked about arches that we can make buildings. Do we need to look at that? These things, when they start to morph into looking like animals or humans, what are we learning? Still structuralism. But we're moving towards something. Now look at this. Does that look like anything biological that you've ever seen? Fish bones. Fish bones. How about a spinal cord? Fish has a series of thin members as their ribs and their skeletal. This is starting to look like some kind of being or animal. Now I want you to write this down. We're moving into what we call, pause for effect, biomimicry. Biomimicry. Mimicry biology. Now, based on this structuralism, and it started where, you know how you've done mathematics, you've done something, and it leads you to something else right down the line. That structuralism led us down to, what about the claw of the velociraptor? Okay, I don't know what that's at. It looks like the claw of the velociraptor. What about this? Is there something hidden in biology that we can make better buildings? Do we relate to biological forms more than machine forms? Do we relate to these things? I'm not sure. Kind of scares me. Kind of weird. I don't know if I want my building to look like an aardvark or a possum. you has a PhD in biomimicry now. And I was part of that group because I wanted it, the architecture. I was the only architect in this group of 100. There's biologists and there's physicists and there's marketing people and there's guys that want to make money and I'm going. There was one landscape designer or civil designer. That was it. I'm going, hey, architecture, biomimicry. They're looking about for at every other thing. There's one group in there, Doja. You heard of Doja? They're an actor. They're the ones that make the soap. Instead of using water, they make the soap to clean your hands. But they're starting to think, God bless them. The chemicals that I use to make this soap may be harming the environment. What if I look to biomimicry to find a cleansing agent in biology that would clean my hand, that would sterilize my hand? Not chlorine, not all these nasty things we don't know what to do with. How do bees clean? Or how do this? They even looked at lotus leaves. Lotus leaves are really weird because they catch the water, and as the water gets heavy, they fall and let the water run off. They catch the water to get some, and when it gets too heavy, it just rolls right off. What if buildings did that? What if my building held water enough to use some of the water for us to use to flush toilets, and then after it got too heavy, it just moved and the thing rolled off? What if? What if? You guys are going to see that. You're going to see biological buildings, I guarantee it. You guys are going to be going, God, this is cool. Buildings that move. Buildings that respond to the environment. Buildings that change color with the light. You ever see the sunglasses that change color when you go outside? And they go inside and they go away? Buildings are going to do that. Oh, sun came out, it's too hot, heating up the building. Sunglasses. Can you imagine? You're driving down New York City, sun comes out all the way. Wow, you're going to get in an accident. No, your car will be driving itself. You won't get in an accident. Car will be driving itself. You'll just be, wow, car drive yourself. Look at the buildings, they're all changing color. Unless you're Will Smith, you want to drive yourself. I Robot or something. See, I watch all this stuff, don't I? That's where we're going. Biomimicry. I had some great things in my mind. Sometimes. Most people are saying that the 20th century was the century of physics. They're now saying the 21st century is going to be the century of biology. Biological response. Buildings that move. Buildings that eat. Buildings that clean the air. Buildings that respond like smart buildings. And we're looking at a lot of biology for that. For example, in Africa, there are termites. So, well, these termites build these tall mounds. They're probably as tall as me. Now, the African desert in the afternoon and in the summer is 115 degrees. And at night, it gets down to about 50. But in that termite mound, it's always 86. How did they do that? How did they do that? You mean when it's 56 outside, it's 86, and when it's 126, it's 86? How did they do that? Air conditioning? Big mechanical equipment? Well, air conditioning biologically. We are starting to build. There's some people in Kenya or something that took a termite mound. They studied it and designed a building to match that biology, and the building uses like 87% less energy. Because most of the time it can ventilate and cool and warm itself naturally. Holy shit. Do you ever wonder why bees build their hives with hexagons? Why do bees build like that? Who knows? Yeah? Does anybody care? So repeating pattern, why not circles? Can't squish those together. Did you hear what he said? What's this? Same pattern. What's this? Wasted space. Bees don't waste space. Okay, you're smart. You know what about squares? You got no problem with squares. They'll fit right together, right? Yeah, there's the answer. Now I'm off the page. Squares. So I thought, I don't know. Then I studied biology. Bees can't clean the corners at 90 degrees very well. But once you go to 135 to 135, they can clean. And bees really want clean. They want every little molecule of that honey. So that's why it's efficient. No wasted space like the circles, and they can't clean those corners unless they spread them out. What about buildings? Wait a minute, is there something that we could use there? I don't know. But we're looking at it. Try it with octagons. You have squares in the middle. It doesn't work. Try it with pentagons. It doesn't work. Only squares. No except hexagons. And the reason they're hexagons is you can clean the corners. Ever seen a wasp nest before? How many? Everybody take one down? Have to kill the wasp? Take one down? Anybody? I had a wasp nest in my house. I had a wasp nest in my house. And it's right up in the eaves, and it's right near the vents of the house. I don't like killing anything. I'm one of those tree huggers, sorry, but that's me. Especially the bees. Don't kill honeybees, by the way. Swoosh them away, but don't kill them. We're losing them. They're pollinating our flowers. By the way, that's what all this is about. Oh, who cares about a bee? Son of a bitch. They pollinate the flowers. Without the bees, we don't grow stuff. If the bees die, what happens? They're going, hey, I'm going to take a little of this, put a little of that, and I'm going to eat, and I'm going to share with you guys, and everything grows. We don't want to kill them. So this wasp were up there, so big ass wasp nest. I get, man, what am I going to do with this thing? Finally said, I got to kill it. It's going to get in the house. My wife's going to wake up, stung with wasps up her nose. I got to get rid of it. So I get one of those things and I spray the hell out of it. It sprays real far. I'm on a ladder because it's way up. And then I'm thinking, when those suckers come out, how am I get down this ladder fast enough before they kick my ass? So I'm, anyway, almost fell off the ladder fight. Thank God I didn't do it. Finally, I go up there and I take the nest down. Wasps were dead, I take the nest down. Long story, that thing was amazing. Now this is the middle of summer. We're having thunderstorms and winds blowing, and we had lightning, and this little thing up there going, it weighed nothing. You ever burn paper and have the ash that's left? That's all it was. I went, how did it do that? It went poof. It was like, it weighed nothing. And inside, what did I find? That. Up inside. Holy shit. What if I could build my building with 100 of the materials and it still stands? Wind and rain and thunderstorms. Well, this one was kind of tucked under my eave a little bit, but still, it was a summer. You know what summers are like. I don't know, how did the water, I just get that soak up all the water, get so heavy it just fell. And it's holding on by nothing. Tui, spit. They're thinking about making glues out of wasp spit or bee spit. They're studying spiders because they figured out that the strands of the spider are so thin that they can do like 1,000 times their weight. We're running out of materials, folks. We're running out of everything. The population keeps on trucking. 7 billion now. I never thought I'd hear 7 billion when I was growing up. It was 3 billion. 40 years, it doubled in a half. More than doubled in 35, 40 years. So I remember when I was 20, 3.4 billion. Now we got 7. Supposed to be by 2050, 2030, 10 billion. So, well, when we're running out of stuff and we're getting more people, we need more stuff. How are we going to use less stuff when we need more stuff for more people? We got to figure out something, and the architects are at the pinnacle of this stuff. So why I have trouble with Donald Trump when he takes away some of his stuff? It bothers me. We got to think about the planet. We don't get rid of the EPA. The Cuyahoga River caught on fire in 1968. The Cuyahoga River caught on fire. It was so polluted. It's still in people talk about it. All right, I'll see you. What's today? Wednesday. I'll see you on Monday.